Hello, my name is Claire Hayes. I'm a senior member of the Read Live team, and my job is to educate and support teachers and administrators who are using our programs. In this webinar, I'm going to provide you with an overview of Read Naturally Live, which is one of the programs within Read Live. Read Naturally Live focuses on fluency and comprehension with strong supports for phonics and vocabulary. Read Naturally Live is a mostly independent reading intervention program that also provides opportunities for one-on-one time with a student and teacher. I'll be presenting this information using slides and live demonstration samples within a Read Live account. Accompanying this presentation is a printable handout with the slides and associated resource links. You can also find links to more basics presentations that teach and inform about the other programs within Read Live, like Read Naturally Live Espanol, Word Warm-Ups Live, and 1 Minute Reader Live. If you have questions after you've viewed the webinar, please let us know and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Feel free to share this webinar with others in your school or district who may find it of value. Thanks again for joining me. Now let's get started. Today we're talking about Read Naturally Live, which is the flagship program of Read Naturally, and it is one of the key components to Read Live. Within Read Live, we have our most well-known program, Read Naturally Live. We also have Word Warm-Ups Live, 1 Minute Reader Live, and Read Naturally Live Espanol. Choosing a program that is appropriate for each student is a very important part. Some students may use one of the 4 programs and others use all 4 of them. So a brief overview of what each one covers. Read Naturally Live, as I mentioned, is a fluency and comprehension building strategy that supports phonics and vocabulary. It starts in 1st grade reading level up through 8th grade reading level. Word Warm-Ups is a phonics decoding program that works on automaticity through phonics skills. There is a level 1, which has 1-syllable words. In the fall of 2021, there will be level 2, which has 2-syllable words, and the multisyllabic level will be coming later. 1 Minute Reader Live is an independent reading program that it starts in 1st grade through 5th grade. And that's ideal for students during their independent reading time if they're intervention students, but they need something more structured for their independent reading time. It can also be used with students who don't use an intervention, but just need some more structured guided reading during independent reading time. And of course, Read Naturally Live Espanol is the same program as it is in English. It's just designed to teach students how to read in Spanish. And again, today we will be talking specifically about Read Naturally Live. When you're scheduling programs that are within Read Live, it's important to have an idea of how long students should work in it. With Read Naturally Live, we recommend at least 30-minute sessions, 3 to 5 days a week. You can do as much as 45 minutes per session. Word Warm-Ups Live can be used as a brief warm-up, so just a 10-minute, maybe at the start of reading intervention time, or it can be used for 20 to 30 minutes. And again, 3 to 5 days is recommended. 1 Minute Reader Live is really just independent reading time, so it can be used as homework or in summer reading programs or during your dear time at school. Read Naturally Live has our powerful strategy of teacher modeling, repeated reading, and progress monitoring. All our programs have these 3 components. In Read Naturally Live, students get teacher modeling as they read the story with a narrator that is reading it slow enough that they can actively read out loud along with the narrator. It's not a listening activity. It's not a silent reading. Students need to move their lips so they can see, hear, and say the words all at the same time. Repeated reading, as the national panel says, is the best way to improve reading fluency. And of course, it's the best way to get better at just about anything. In the Read Naturally Live strategy, students read the same passage over and over again until they've mastered the words in that passage. And the final component is progress monitoring. And in the progress monitoring, students get immediate feedback about how they are doing in the program. They get to see their cold scores and pass scores, and they get visual images that is incredibly motivating for struggling readers. Read Naturally is for first through adult learners that are reading at or below an 8th grade reading level. So the earliest levels are early 1st grade up through 8th grade level. All of our material is high interest nonfiction. We do have optional Spanish read-alongs that for Spanish speakers to provide background knowledge. There's 3 curriculum series with 23 levels. And here is a table that tells you the names of the series. We have the sequence series. That starts in level 1.0 and it goes through level 8.0, which of course is 8th grade reading level. We also have a phonics series that starts at 0.8 and it goes through 2.7. If you have a student whose fluency and comprehension needs line up with their phonics needs, this is most likely to be a 1st or a 2nd grade student. Young students tend to have fluency and phonics needs that are similar. Then that student can address their phonics need within the phonics series of Read Naturally Live. If you are working with an older student, maybe who can function at a level 3.0 or higher, but has an early phonics need, that's when they would use Word Warm-Ups Live. The idiom series is 4 levels from 3rd to late 4th grade. And of course, the focus there is idioms. In order to get started, you're going to need to add and license your students. Perhaps someone has already done that for you. You will also need to place your students, and I will walk you through that process. And finally, you're going to need to teach your students how to do this program. And Read Naturally Live has trainings for students that I will show you once we get to that point. So I'm going to pop out of our PowerPoint for a moment, and I'm going to navigate over to Read Naturally Live, which is an online website. It can be used with Chromebooks, laptops, desktops, and iPads. We'll go ahead and log in as a staff member first. We do have something called an orientation and resources page, so that provides lots of information and links to helpful resources. I'm going to go to the home page first. In order to add and license your students, you do that under Student Setup. So I'll just go in that box for a moment. You can see there's an Add Student button, and that is where you will add all of your students' information. You will grant them access to one or more of the programs available and give them a license. Once they have been added, the next thing you need to do, of course, is place them. Notice under the Read Naturally Live tile, the first bullet point lists Place My Licensed Students. If you're not sure where to find something, try to remember to look for those bullets. They will direct you to the right spot. When we click on Read Naturally Live, we are presented with a list of all of our students. If I scroll over to the right on my page, the section on placement becomes more centered. Notice that most of my students have something filled in for series, level, and goal because most of them have been placed. I do have one student down here who does not have those things filled in. So let's walk through placement with that student. The first thing you need to do is be with the student. Hopefully we're in person and they can just be sitting next to you. Otherwise, if you're in a distance situation, then you would meet in a Zoom or Google Meets meeting room. You click the place button and you're presented with a list of all the levels that Read Naturally Live has. Level 1 through 8. If you click on the I next to the readability level, it will let you know which levels in the different series are available. So for example, at level mid 1st grade level, we have 1.5 of the sequence series. We also have the phonics series available in the long vowels. So if you have a student who's working at a 1st grade level, likely a young student, and needs work in phonics, you would have them place in the phonics series. Let's go ahead and select a level for this student to begin working in or to begin placement for. We'll go ahead and select 2.5 and click the next button. I'm now presented with a story for Greta to read. And as soon as she begins reading, I click Start Timer. As she's reading, I am keeping track of how many errors she has. I will enter the number of missed words into this rectangle after she's finished. It's important to know that our placement will put students in a level that is slightly above their instructional level. So if you have a student that you think reads at a late first or early second grade level, that student will probably place in a mid to late second grade level. Okay, so about a half to a full grade level above their instructional level. And the reason for that is that our program provides a lot of support. They get to read along with audio support over and over and learn words they didn't know on their own. They also get to practice repeatedly and to be able to master it through repeated practices. So this support allows students to function at a level that is slightly higher than they could function if they were reading independently. When the minute timing is over, the audio support will ask that you click on the last word and enter the missed words.
Click on the last word you read when the bell sounded.
I will click on the word Julie and enter the 3 errors that I heard during the placement test. Then I will click the next button and I will be presented with the student's results. The placement testing level is 2.5. Greta read 50 words correctly, which is between 30 and 60 words. And at level 2.5, we want the student to read between 30 to 60 words in order for this to be the right level for her. Okay, so because she's within that range, under the choose an option and click next column, the circle is filled in next to stop testing and pick a level. So if Greta also struggled with R controlled and other letter combinations, I might put her in a phonics level. If not, I would put her in level 2.5 of the sequence series. Notice that I can choose to continue testing. So if I want to try another level to see if that's an even better fit, I can do that. I tend to usually go with what the computer recommends. When I select the level I choose and click next, I am then offered information saying you're leaving placement. Be sure that you want to put Greta in the sequence series with a level 2.5 and a goal of 80. This goal is not a long-term fluency goal. This is a goal within the program. It's based on this score that she got during placement. The computer added 30 to that score. Younger students, it will add 30. Older students, it will add 40. The student needs to be able to read a passage at that words correct per minute rate in order to pass the passage. So when I click OK, now I'll be able to see that Greta has been placed in level 2.5 with a goal of 80. The last thing I want to show you within this screen is this button that says change story options for selected. When I select a student's name and click on that blue button, it gives me all the steps that I am going to walk through with you in a moment. The steps that your students will go through. They are all adjustable in many different ways. Okay, so I will talk about some of the ways that you may adjust them depending on the needs of your students, but it's important to know that this program was designed to be differentiated. Our students have very different needs and those needs change. And so you not only place them individually into the right level and goal, but you also adjust the steps based on the needs of each individual student. If you are unable to do individualized placement, you can click the edit button next to the student's name and manually assign a series level and goal. I strongly encourage you to do individualized placement. It will save you time in the long run because you will get students in the right place sooner. So now what I'm going to do is pop over to another tab on my browser and actually log in as a student this time. When I log in as a student, I of course click the student button instead of the staff. And now you can see that my student I'm going to walk through the story with is Molly Anderson. She has access to Read Naturally Live Espanol, Word Warm-Ups Live, and 1 Minute Reader Live. Today, we're just going to have her walk through Read Naturally Live.
Please select a story.
As you can see, Molly Anderson is in the sequence series level 3.5 with a goal of 120. The stories that have stars, she has passed. The ones that don't, she can still work on. There is no order to the stories. They're all nonfiction high interest, and she can select any one that she wants. So we'll go ahead and pick a story for Molly to begin working in.
Old Faithful.
Are you ready to start this story? Click each key word to learn the word and what it means.
Eruption. An eruption is an explosion in which fire, smoke, or liquid shoots out of something. A volcanic eruption shoots out lava and ash.
Notice at the bottom, the next button is disabled. Students can't go on until they've clicked on all their keywords and read their definitions.
Geyser. A geyser is a hole in the ground from which water or steam shoots out.
Sometimes there's a picture, like geyser. Other times the word is used in a sentence, like predictable.
Predictable. Predictable means easy to tell what will happen in the future. The football game was predictable. It was easy to tell which team would win.
Now remember I mentioned that there are phonics levels available. Let's say that Molly was working in a 1.3 level, long vowels. All of these keywords would be long vowel words. If the story was about a lake, all the keywords would be long A, silent E words. And instead of giving definitions, there would actually be an audio-supported direct instruction of phonics on that sound or pattern. So that's one of the differences between the phonics and the sequence series. The idiom series, of course, instead of individual words, they're phrases, idioms, and those idioms are defined during the keyword step.
Spews. Spews means sends out with great force or speed. A volcano spews lava when it erupts.
Click a word again, or click Next to continue. Look at the story title, keywords, and picture. Write a prediction about the story. Then, click Next to continue.
Now the students are on the prediction step, and this is a comprehension strategy. We're trying to have students think for a moment about what they're going to read. Students can type in a prediction. Older students may be required to have a capital and period. One of the words, the keywords should be included in there. Younger students, maybe just a couple words, or just turn it off completely. If you're working with first and second graders and keyboarding is causing them a lot of frustration, you can turn that step off. Notice that there's an Apple and teacher button at the top of every student screen. When I click on that, I can enter my teacher username and password, and that brings me to a teacher menu. So I can make changes to my students' program right as they are working. Let's say I realize they need a new level or goal, I could make an adjustment. I can also change their story options. Prediction isn't the best use of a student's time who's in a first or second grade and gets frustrated with typing, so we could turn it off. I want you to notice the next step is a cold timing step. And the way I have the story options set is that the teacher is required to be with the student. So when we go back into the student module, I will actually go into a waiting activity instead of going directly to cold timing, because the teacher is going to be required. And so the computer won't allow the student to go into that step until the teacher has entered her username and password. Notice that you can allow students to do it independently. Ideally, a teacher would be with them, but that's not always possible. So after you teach your students to do this step, if you need to allow them to do that on their own, that is possible through altering the cold timing step. So I'll close out of this now and be directed back into the student module where we will go to our waiting activity.
Play Wordtastic while you wait for your teacher. Click the best answer to score points. Click on the words you don't know to hear them read to you.
As you can see down here, it says waiting for a teacher, and the screen is red at the top and bottom. If you are in a face-to-face learning environment, you'll be walking around the lab and you'll notice that a student's screen turns red. That means that the teacher needs to stop and work with that student. If you are in a distance situation, we do have something called the waiting list. When a student is on a step where they need the teacher, their name appears in the waiting list and a little ticker increases the number. You can log in as the student through the waiting list, but then you do need to share the screen through a Zoom. So you do need a screen sharing application in order to do it. But you can identify who is in need of your assistance through this waiting list. There's a button that you can log in as that student and then share your screen. As the student's waiting for you, they play this synonym and antonym vocabulary game. All the words are clickable, so if they can't read it, they can click on them. That's the audio sound for incorrect. They get no points. They're provided with the answer and that word will go back in the pile. when they get an answer correct, they get a different sound and 2 points. Hopefully the students will not have to play this game long. They can click on conduct cold timing, and then the teacher enters her username and password into this box. So the computer knows that the teacher is with the student. Again, you can allow it for set the option so that students can do this step on their own.
Click Start Timing and begin reading. Click on the words you don't know to hear them read to you. Click Finished if you finish reading before the bell sounds.
Now the student and the teacher are looking at the same screen. As soon as the student begins reading, you click Start Timer. If the student makes a mistake,
Yellowstone, National.
You can click on that word. The word is read for the student. It's tallied as an error, so that's how you keep track of errors, and it's listed in a difficult word box. So you can review those words later. Every word is clickable.
In, the. See.
If a student is doing this by themselves, they may click on these bigger words that they don't know because they want to hear what the word says. But they're not even going to notice they missed these little ones. But that's okay too, because the very next thing they do is read along with audio support and learn how to read the story properly. If you are with them, clicking on all these words will heighten their awareness of making those mistakes, which will help fix that issue. So I encourage you to click on every word that they miss to help them learn to identify when that
Click
happens.
on the last word you read when the bell sounded. Click Next to continue.
It says we read 90 words correctly. I had about 5 errors. So I attempted 95. I read 90 correctly, and now we get to see the graph.
Look at how many words you read correctly per minute. Click Next to continue.
The student read 90 words correctly. The goal is 120. You want the difference between the cold timing and the goal to be about 30 to 40 words, depending on the age of the student. After they take a look at this graph, they can go on to the read along.
Click Start Read Along to read along, or click Next to continue.
Students need to read along with the audio support, not listen along and stare out the window or not pay attention. They need to move their lips along with the audio support. So they need to see, say, and hear the words all at the same time so they can learn the words that they don't know and solidify words that may be difficult for them. All these words that are hyperlinked have a definition attached to them. So this is a great way to get some additional work and vocabulary. If you have a native Spanish speaker, you can turn on an optional Spanish read along where the story will appear in Spanish and the student can hear it read in Spanish. Again, that's not to teach them to read in Spanish. That's what Read Naturally Live Espanol is for. But the Spanish read along is just to provide some background knowledge for someone that may be helpful for. I'm allowed to go on to next right away because I have it set at 0 read-alongs. But your students, the default is 3 read-alongs, but you can adjust it anywhere from 0 to 5, depending on the individual needs of the student. Younger students tend to need to read along all 3 times, whereas older students usually only need to read along once, maybe twice. So you can adjust it. If you tell them, if I see you actively reading along, I might drop you down to 2 read-alongs instead of 3. But if I see that you're not actually reading along, I might increase it. So that's one way to get them to have a consequence and a reward for complying or not. The next step we're going to go to is the practice step.
Click Start Timing and begin reading. Click on the words you don't know to hear them read to you. Click Finished if you finish reading before the bell sounds.
Now the student's practicing on her own. When she comes to a word she doesn't know,
Yellowstone, soon, splash.
she can click on it. They're very likely to click on words during this because they know when they get to the past step, the teacher is going to mandate that they are accurate. And so anything they're somewhat unsure of, they tend to click during this step. I have the practice set as a 1-minute timing, but you can adjust that to be a 2-minute timing or a whole story timing. And I strongly recommend that, especially for older students. The whole story timing is ideal when you have a longer story that are in higher levels. Also, you need to work on reading endurance. And so if that's the case, the student would read till the final word in the passage and click the finished button. Then the computer will calculate how many words they read in a minute. So the practice scores are still comparable to the minute cold timing score. I have it set as just a 1 minute.
Click on the last word you read when the bell sounded.
So I will click on the last
You've
word
reached your
attempted.
goal. You've finished all your practices. Click Start Timing to practice again, or click Next to continue.
Students will have to practice over and over again. So ideally, students will practice 3, 4, 5, 6 times before they reach their goal, okay? It's that repeated reading that makes them automatic. So you want them to practice multiple times. I reached my goal on my first practice, but your students, if they're reaching their goal on their first practice, it's too easy, okay? An adjustment needs to be made. So now I get to go on to the quiz.
Click the best answer and then click Next.
That's the audio sound for correct, and here's incorrect. The first 4 are multiple choice, then short answer. If typing is tricky, 1 letter will allow the student to go on, so you can have them tell you the answer orally later. Now we have a matching. And the next one we have is a fill in the blank. So in this level, there are 7 questions. Old Faithful is one of the world's most famous geysers. An event happens about every 90 minutes. Old Faithful spews out steam in gallons of hot water. Each eruption is predictable. You just need to know how long the previous eruption lasted. Now, if they were in a higher level, there might be another question about sequencing or comparing and contrasting. But in this level, 7 is the most number of questions, and so we can go on to the retell now.
Retell or summarize the story in your own words. Click Review Story if you want to read the story again.
Notice the students can go look back at the story, just like during the quiz questions. They can look in the text and find the right answer. They can't cut and paste, but in standardized tests, they can do this. And so we want to encourage them to do that and teach them how to do that. If your student's working in a phonics level, they won't have a retell, but rather they'll have a word list. Students will read down the columns of the word list and across the rows until they've mastered those words. So typically, students who are younger are often in phonics series levels, and then they don't have a written retell, but rather that word list.
Now you're ready to pass. Read the story and play Wordtastic until your teacher comes to pass you on this story.
So now the student's practicing on her own. She is again waiting for the teacher. So you can see down here it says waiting for the teacher. Her screen has turned red. So in a distance learning situation, she will appear in that waiting list. And in a face-to-face situation, you'll notice that the screen is red. And as soon as you can, you will click this gold Conduct Pass Activities. Now, if it takes a little while for you to get there, she can practice reading the story again. And then after that, she will be able to go on to record herself reading the story. So that is also an option for students. If you have students doing a whole story timing for their practices, then they will also do a whole story timing for their pass. Okay, so remember, my student for this demo just did a 1 minute timing for the practice. So my passing is also going to be just 1 minute timings. But that adjustment can be made for each individual student, so everyone can have whatever makes the most sense for that student.
Click on the last word you read. Click Start Timing to practice again. Or click Next to continue. Click Start Recording to record yourself reading the story. Click Finished if you finish reading before the bell sounds. If you don't want to record yourself, click Next to continue.
So as you can see, they get all the options. They can record themselves, and then the teacher could listen to it later through the staff module and pass them when you're not even together. Or the student could just listen to it to hear themselves. And hopefully the teacher will come soon and enter their username and password to listen to them live. So in a face-to-face environment, that is the ideal situation. Now the student and the teacher are again looking at the same screen. The start timing button gets clicked as soon as the student begins reading. But now you can't click on words you don't know. Remember, during the cold timing and the practice, words the student didn't know could be clicked on and read for the student. Now you keep track of how many words they miss and enter the number of errors in the box after the timing is over. So you are listening for accuracy. They can only have 3 or fewer errors and still pass the story. So we expect a high level of accuracy. We are also listening for expression. There's a rubric of scores of 1 to 4. A score of 1 does not pass the student. Scores of 2, 3, and 4 do. So you can decide what kind of expression rating you want to give each student. And of course, you're listening for rate. So they need to reach that words correct per minute score that you set for them when you placed them or adjusted after they made some improvement.
Click on the last word you read when the bell sounded.
So again, 3 or fewer errors passes the student. You enter the number of missed words. Here's the rubric that tells you which number correlates with what kind of reading, and you can grade them on expression. Now we get to see that hot timing score. The kids love to see that progress. We can correct the open-ended question. You can see how easily it would be to give this answer orally for a student who struggled with typing. You can also correct the retell, or if the student was a phonics series student, they would read the word list for you at this time. Now I can go on to the next screen, but I want to show you everything that's on this pass review work page. Right now we're looking at the story details. I can take a look back at all the quiz questions. So if a student misses a question and I have a minute, I'm going to click on that. And I can see what the student's most recent answer is. I can see what their correct answer is, and I can help the student find the answer in the text. If I have 3 kids waiting on me, I might not do that because I don't have the time. But it's such a great one-on-one opportunity, and it really takes less than a minute oftentimes to have that mini lesson. Also notice that all the difficult words are listed. We can print this from here. We can also access this data and print it from the staff module. If I click the fluency tab, it tells me the cold and hot scores on all the stories in this level so far. I can also see comprehension scores. This particular student on main idea is struggling with an only 63% on main idea questions. So not only can I see overall comprehension, but what kinds of comprehension are causing trouble for each student. The final remedial action screen allows me to see the student's pass results. Are there any red X's under the pass results column? If a student has all stars, I would be able to click next and be done. But because the student has 1 red X, I need to select a remedial action to make this student do in order to fix this issue. Because she missed a quiz question, I would select yes next to redo missed quiz questions. I want to hold her accountable for that. Now do notice that you can pass with current scores. So that is possible if you need to get out of the story. But I think that it's important to hold them to a high standard. So I will have her go back and fix this quiz
Click
question.
the best answer and then click Next. Congratulations! You passed this story. Click Done to finish.
So now the student gets a series of medals and blue ribbons. They get a blue ribbon if they did it as well as is possible, and a medal if they met the criteria for passing. Once they're finished,
please select a story.
They can pick a new story until you think they're ready for a higher level or goal. Students can end on any step. The bell rings when the bell rings. They just log out. When they log back in the next day, it will pick them up right where they left off. It does take 35 to 45 minutes to get through all the steps, depending on the level and how you have story options set. But you want students to get through as many stories as possible each week. 1 story a week isn't sufficient. Try to have them get through 3 stories. If they're meeting 5 days a week for 30 minutes a time, once they're familiar with the program, they should be able to get through about 3 in a week. And you are going to see much more progress if your students get through more stories. So now I'm going to go back into the PowerPoint and talk with you about a little bit about the reports that are available. There's so many in there. The only one I'm going to show you right here is my personal favorite, the Students at a Glance. There's other reports within the staff module too. And please look at some of our other webinars on data analysis if you want to have information about how to use the data in this report to help drive your instruction. We have lots of resources on our webpage, videos, guides, training options for students, and job aids. In fact, I am going to show you how to locate student training videos. Notice on our Read Naturally website, we have different tabs. One of them is called Training. If I scroll down to near the bottom, I see that there's a link called Student Training Videos. When I click on that, I am brought to a page that has training videos for all the programs within Read Live. So your lesson plans for teaching your kids how to do this program properly are done. For the Read Naturally Live one, there's 4 short videos, and I can have the student watch the first video, and then they can log in to their account and do the first couple steps. Then they could watch the second video and log into their account and do those steps. Okay, so this is a great way to train your students. And again, that's on the readnaturally.com website, training tab, student training videos. So today we talked about Read Live, but really we only talked deeply about Read Naturally Live. Please know that there are other webinars, basics webinars that cover Word Warm-Ups Live, 1 Minute Reader Live, and Read Naturally Live Espanol. Those are available on our website. Here is our phone number and website, so please reach out to us. This does conclude the webinar on the basics of Read Naturally Live. I hope the information that we shared in this demonstration was useful to you. If you'd like to learn more, again, please check out our other basics webinars on the Read Naturally site and reach out to us if you have any questions about any of our programs. Thanks again and have a great day.